Out of 10 people, one person come and assault you or insult you in front of other people. That trauma or that sour feeling in your stomach stays with you for the rest of your life.
Forever, yeah, exactly.
So that is the impact of these traumas.
You are watching In the Clear with Amir. Today we have a very special episode, an unplanned one that I've had in my mind for many, many years. We're joined today by my father, Zendhnam. There are a handful of different things that we're going to be talking about today that all center around collective male trauma and our collective healing as men. And just going off of why I have my dad here, I have dealt with a lot of trauma as a man growing up in this world, as I'm sure many of you men watching have as well. The problem is most of us are not very equipped with how to handle these issues that come from living in this current matrix at this current time. And I'm just really happy to start verbalizing them, and most importantly, verbalizing them with the person who brought me here, which is this guy. So what's up, Bubba? How you doing?
Hi.
We had like the craziest time a few days ago. It's a moment that I've hoped to have with my dad, a moment that I've talked with so many of my male friends about wanting to have with their dads, which is just like having a deep conversation, crying, talking about your emotions. And me and my dad got to do that the other day. So that was pretty cool.
That's right.
The thing that I've learned through many years of trauma healing and now helping other people through their traumas and healing them is that this shit is not easy. Like, it's not easy to get to the point that we got. My dad tells me a lot of crazy ass stories, and like including like, getting your ass kicked by police when you were a kid, like these are all, I'm like, whoa, these are traumatic instances that shape who you are as an adult. So, Bubba, which is what I call my dad, tell me a little bit about your life, like your teenage years, what brought you to this country and made you who you were, for starting from the early days.
This is a good opportunity for me to air out some of the things that I went through in my life. And I hope other men, other people would benefit from the experiences that I have gone through and the experiences that I've gone through with my own wife and my own kids, and how I raised them and all the troubles that I've had going through life as an immigrant in this country. In my original country, the first probably 10, 11, 12 years of my life was fairly comfortable, but as a child I was just observing some of the unjust actions by people to people, and especially the government of my original country back then to the citizens. And, in my very early ages, probably when I was about 13, 14, 15 or so, I realized that probably I should go and find me a sanctuary away from the country that I was born in. The riots started breaking up when I was probably between ages of 14, 15.
And this is nothing you ever went and saw a therapist about when you were like 14, 15 years old, right? Like, going off of, there just wasn't equipped with the knowledge.
Yeah. Well, for your audience, when they look at my face and then all the wrinkles and my gray hair and everything, they probably realized that, they were not a whole bunch of therapists around.
Exactly. Being the point of now in 2019, we can talk about this.
Right, right. In my country, in my original country, or in any country per se, you just grow up, go to school, go to college if you're lucky enough, and get a good job and get married and have kids, and then just be a slave, as my son Amir calls it, for the rest of your life, and then you retire and then sit there and die, and that's just the way it is. I have witnessed as a teenager the brutality of the police state of my own country, and then I actually have seen people being crushed. I mean, literally their bones were crushed by the police and the military in the old regime, and that was just I think, as the saying goes, the last straw on the camel's back. When I was a teenager, in my later teenage years, I asked my dad, I said, can I go overseas to other countries, maybe more liberated, more free countries, and then celebrate my life and study in other countries. And the byproduct of that would be I would start learning other languages, other cultures, and so forth and so on. And then my dad and my mom agreed that I would go to a different country, and then I went to Europe. I decided to go to a small town, and then I started studying. And
so going back, I mean, you left because you wanted freedom.
I wanted different location, different lifestyle. I wanted to celebrate my life rather than being miserable. I wanted to get away from the atrocities of the government and the police state that I was, growing up into. And then I really couldn't see the Secret Service pick up the young kids like myself or the college students from the street and then just take them out and just beat them up and then murder them and, all the executions and then firing squads and on and on and on. I don't want to draw a very bad picture because there were a lot of good things about.
But I mean, it's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, the reality. I was very sensitive to the notion of
firing squads is kind of a big deal.
Right. The operation. It just didn't settle with me. So anyways, I went to Europe, which back then, in 1960s and 70s, and, those times, Europe as a whole was a better option for me to grow up and flourish. And then amazingly enough, although I said that I was not a good student, when I went to more free society and then better schools, better instructors, better instructional system, I started flourishing, and then I just became a very, very good student.
So just like me, you weren't doing good in the things that they were forcing you to do.
Absolutely.
And then right when it became things you wanted to do, you're like, wait, I'm the smartest guy around. Like,
right,
what the?
Right. Right.
That's how I feel with my stuff too.
Right. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. And then I went to another very fabulous country, which is, I think, still is one of the best countries on the surface of Earth, and that's Switzerland. I worked in Switzerland, and then I went to England, to London, and that was really the time that Europe was thriving. The economy was fairly good with European people, and there was not much of a hostility towards the so-called foreigners. Or the brown-skinned people, although we are white per nature and per race, but because we have a little darker pigments, they, call us brown people or brown-skinned people. Nonetheless,
none of those colors mean shit anyway.
Right. I always considered myself to be a human being, a good human being, a good young man. And then the people of, those European countries gave me the opportunity to be a good young man and learn. Then I decided to come to U.S. Now, coming to U.S. for me was a very easy chore. I just, let's say, got my visa in a few hours. And then
and let's put that into perspective real quick. It took you a few hours to get a visa as a dude who was like from Iran, like a country they don't like, and you just got your visa in a few hours, where today it would take you years.
Well, that's true. When you say they didn't like, I want to probably approach it in a different way as far as liking or not liking.
Oh yeah, you mean the governments weren't getting what they wanted from the other governments, so they made...
No, the governments were allies, they were friends, because one country was the master of the other country. And they were...
this was before the revolution.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we need to go timelines here. This was before 1979.
No, this is early. This is very early...
so then what year did you come to America?
Oh, well, it was probably very early 70s. When I came up here, I had my very first sort of abnormal treatment and greeting. I went from London direct to Miami, Florida.
So real quick, a lot of your trauma first stemmed from. This is the really amazing part, is that being able to talk to your dad about trauma. The interesting thing that I'm noticing between baby boomers and millennials is the fact that the generations seem so split. But the main difference is, like, talking to my dad about all this stuff, they had the same shit in their head. They just weren't equipped with the language to speak it, to express it properly as we do today. And that's the crazy thing, that I'm just, the more we talk about these issues that he never felt comfortable talking about, just like I never felt comfortable talking about my traumas, because you're a man. That's not what you do. You keep that shit to yourself. Like, you have to be the strong guy. But
yeah, you don't complain.
You don't complain. Keep working. Shut the fuck up. Keep going. You know.
Keep on trucking. So when I arrived from London to Miami, this is my very first experience with this country. I stood in the line just like anybody else, and I was just a kid, and I was, and I was waiting for my turn, and some guy came around and grabbed my passport and looked at my visa, and then I had a visa. So anyway, I went through the immigration, and then the guy pulled me to the side and he said, "You go and sit on that chair and don't move until we tell you to move." And then he gave my passport back to me, and I just sat there, and I just sat there, and just sat there. And Amir doesn't know this story, by the way. I guess nobody really knows.
Yeah,
this story.
that's why we have you on the show right now, because there's certain stories that so many other people in your generational gap, and just generally speaking, have dealt with and can resonate with and don't feel comfortable talking about.
Right, but yet at the same time, I think that by me being here with you, as your guest, and talking about not bad things, just talking about the experiences.
Yeah, what is the experience, right, and what are you doing now about it,
Right. So I just sat on that chair in the immigration area of Miami Airport, and this is back in very early 1970s, and then nothing happened. The passengers left, the people in uniform left. And that was the time that immigration officers and the custom officers were from different departments. Anyways, so I just sat there, and this guy, who his uniform says U.S. Custom, came up to me and he said, "Young man, what are you doing here? Why are you sitting just here?" And I said, there was a guy with the immigration uniform on, and then he just looked at my passport, and then he said, "Sit here." He pulled me out of the line, and very rudely, he just told me to sit here and wait for somebody to come and get you. And then he kind of like smiled at me, and he said, about 2 hours ago, those immigration officers have gone home already. Everybody's gone home. This is getting late at night, and we have to close the airport. So he just grabbed my passport, and he said, "You're all good. You have your own visa, and then you have your own legal stay in this country, and welcome to America." So that was my very first experience with the people at the airport. One guy just put me aside, and he degraded me intentionally, and then he just left. He went to his own family without letting me know that he was leaving or calling upon somebody else to come and talk to me. He just let me sit there. The other side was the other guy from U.S. Custom, and this officer came to me and he said, "What are you doing?" And then he just said, "Go to your hotel. You're good to go." So I really saw both extreme sides of rudeness and the kindness from the American people towards me, being a foreigner, a foreign youngster. And anyways, I put my first step in this country.
Going past that, into the 70s, and then going into the Iranian hostage crisis, the revolution, and where it was actually dangerous to be Iranian. Like, people were getting killed in America. Like,
Yes,
they were
that's
going
true.
like in Los Angeles, they were going around and hunting. Like, there are these stories, these Iranian guys are like, I had to tell people I was Arab and then they didn't kill me. Like, that was essentially the differences that we have here, is that I grew up dealing with very similar racism to what my dad did, and very similar traumas, except the difference is that for some reason, I mean, our generation has the power to stand up and fight back more than our parent, like the baby boomer generation, you know, who was more conformist, fell in line a little more, and you know, and there was less ability for you to have justice in a time where I can pull out my phone and be talking to millions of people.
That's
you know,
true.
like when some cop beats your ass 40 years ago, there's no recourse. There's no video, there's no nothing, you know.
Going back to 1977, 1978, 1979, the things were going from bad to worse in my original country. And then they were shooting the people on the street, and the militaristic attitude, the police state, and on and on and on. I was just following those things up to the time that it came, like 1979. And then the Shah was forced by foreign governments to leave his country, and then he abandoned the country. And then the new regime came around, and then we were watching the new regime as youngsters, and then we wanted to see if they were doing any better with the country. And then, of course, you know, there were a lot of atrocities from the new regime. They were trying to put the pieces of the country back together. You know, they were inviting the educated.
Yeah, historically, like with every violent revolution that happens, like it's not going to be a good turnout. You know, like it's probably not going to be better than what they had.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It was a revolution. They called it a revolution. Everybody else called it a revolution. And it was hostile takeover, and it was very, very violent.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people getting killed, a lot of people getting hurt. Anyway, so going through that, and then shortly after, the new regime came around due to their mistakes and bad planning in the US and UK. There it came the hostage situation. Some people raided the American embassy in my hometown, and then they took hostages for a long time, which was a mistake on the part of the host country, and it was a mistake on the part of the US and UK. But as far as Amir is asking me the question as to how we were going through our life and our college days, being the bad, they call us Iranians, and a whole bunch of other names, which suffice to say, very, very scary in our times. We were hearing that the people of our background were getting hit, they were being run over by the cars, they were being shot at, being knifed down, kicked out of the colleges, kicked out of the employment. I want to say out of 100 people who we were exposed to, anywhere from college students to our professors, to the security guards, to the police officers in our towns and everything, I want to say more than 80% of the people. 80% of the people were protecting us because they knew we had nothing to do with anything.
So it's pretty much the same shit as today.
Now,
most people are...
Right. Even when we went through the 9/11, more than 80% of the Americans protected the Arabs and Iranians and so far and so on.
And you see, actually, this is a very important thing that you're doing right now from like a male trauma perspective, is you're just like, yeah, it was really shitty, but like, look at all the good things that were, and that is called spiritual bypassing. That's one of the things that we were talking about the other day that men are always doing. Like, hey man, at the end of the day, like, it all turned out good though, everything was good. And it's like, yeah, but like those bad things happened over there and you weren't,
The trauma.
That's the point of the show, is the trauma and not the, like, yeah, of course there are good people in America. That's why we're here doing what we do. And it's just not America. It's your personal energy space and how you've had to deal, like, doesn't matter where you were. It's just the fact that it formed. And then through the forming of it, it got transferred into your relationship with your family.
when somebody stabs you, the wound really never heals all the way. When you go to a new job and you have been stabbed in college, let's say twice already, really bad, and the wounds are still open, you go to a job, and then one of those college boys who now works with you as a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer or what have you, and then he would come to your face and stabs you again, then you really are opening up the old wounds, and he is putting or she is putting the salt on your old wounds.
Well, and that's why it's so important to heal our traumas, because as we go through life, if we still have an open wound, it's never healed. So you have to heal the wound to properly move forward.
Properly.
So that you don't, and that's where we are at here right now. Whereas the education, there's a knowledge gap that has happened where you were told that it's forbidden essentially to think these things and then to express these things, and then because of that it's essentially like you're not healing your wound, and you're just like you keep putting a band-aid over it, and then eventually what happens, like you can't keep putting it gets infected, and then it spreads to different areas that you never thought like could be affected. The big thing that has always been part of my life, and again part of many other men's life, is like they want to have these relationships with their fathers, but the child is not equipped, the father's not equipped, and when they try to equip themselves, there's a generation gap and clash that's extremely hard to cross over. However, what I've noticed is, like, you know, the saying love conquers all, you know, all you need is just love, you know, that's all we were really looking for. That's all you were looking for all your life. That's why you left different places. Like, that's why I'm sitting here all the time going like, God, I want to go somewhere else where I'm free. Like, I want to, you know, and then see, ultimately freedom is such an important concept in our minds and outside, because without it, it just manifests into trauma. And then through that trauma, you know, me and you, for example, like our story is that the son and father just like clashed. Like literally, I've clashed with this guy since my earliest memories are like resisting my father. Like my father would tell me something and I would like vividly remember being like, no, I don't want to do that. And, you know, there's like this interesting factor when you're growing up. And then I looked at him as, and this is going into the patriarchy and something I've been trying to explain to my dad, like the hierarchical like family structures of today, in my opinion, are extremely flawed. They're too authoritarian, and they're based off of the current structure of society that we have today. Since we have a state-run society, it's authoritarian in the sense that other people tell you what to do and then you have to do it without logic or question. And that was always the biggest split that I had with my dad. He would tell me to do something, I'd be like, yeah, well, why? That doesn't make sense. Like, you have to convince me to do that. That's not logical. Like, that's stupid. And then in their minds, like, well, because I'm your dad and I said so. And then that was like such a huge disconnect always growing up, which is, well, I'm your dad and I said so, and me being like, well, just because you're my dad doesn't mean you can say so to me, because I'm my own master too, you know, and having these concepts. You can see in action that the dad cares and loves you, and then in rhetoric, it just doesn't connect.
That comes with the authority, because we were equipped, as you call it, my generation and generation before me, we were only equipped with the authority.
Yeah.
You are a man, you become a husband, you become a father, so you are the authority.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing I want to touch upon, the word love that you said. I want to have this session to be educational more than anything else. I don't want to entertain you. I want to educate you through my own experiences. By the way, I have been uneducated, at the higher education level for many, many years. And some of my students are going to watch this show. Going back to all the fathers or to-be fathers who are watching this show throughout their lifetime, throughout their situations and scenarios and circumstances. Be aware of the fact that you take your open wounds wherever you go. You carry that bag, you carry your baggage with you. Be aware of the fact and take it from a man who is old. And I have raised 3 very, very good kids. Mostly thanks to their mother more than anything else, really.
Shout out, mom.
Yeah. But yeah, at the same time, I am telling the fathers, when you go home, try to separate the anxiety from outside. I know it's easier said than done. When you are leaving your job after 12 hours at 6, 7, and then you go through horrific traffic, and then you have to stop to buy the milk and bread and go home, and the wife is pulling her hair and she's all exhausted and tired of raising the kids, taking them to school and doing her job, and then come home and get the household ready for you to come into a loving place. And then here you are after 14, 15, 16 hours. Please, as a father and as a husband, I am asking all the boys, all the guys, young and old, at least try your best to separate that anxiety. And when you go through the castle door of yours to meet with your wife and your own kids, try to be a father. Try to be emotional. Don't tell your kids to go to your room because daddy is too tired to play with you. I know it's hard.
There's no instruction manual.
There is no instruction manual. Nobody, no father, no mother, nobody, no boss ever told you that you when you go home, try not to kick the dog and cats and cuss your wife and send your kids to their rooms because you're frustrated. I want all the fathers out there who are watching me, and there are going to be probably very many fathers like me. I want you to get emotional. I want you to break down. I want you to go to therapy of some sort and try to work out things for yourself. Because if you are in a combat zone within your own self, you cannot be happy, and you cannot transfer the love to your wife and your kids. I want the fathers to go on and get healed and get helped and try to learn how to pass down or convey or relay their love through actions. And this is for the records, I went bankrupt due to my lack of knowledge more than anything else. And then I brought that anxiety of having a good job, a good company to nothing. And now I was still a father of 3. I still was a husband, and I had to provide for my wife. And then be aware of the fact that when you go through depressions because of the lifestyle that you have chosen, you can get out of it. You have to get out of it. When you go through anxiety attacks, you have to get help.
And use some Specker CBD, Now your son makes something to help with that too,
The only difference between the medicine that my son creates in his factory and the medicines that other people do in the pharmaceutical companies is, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a physician or anything like that. But I know that, some medications have the side effects, and what my son makes has no bad side effects.
Trace it, and the studies show it too. When I brought CBD for him like 7 years ago, he said no. 5 years ago, it was no. 4, 3, 2. But last year, when I finally created my products, he finally started taking them. And then he said to me a few weeks ago, I can't believe why these people would be so against that,
I was not educated.
I was like, you said the same exact thing to me a few weeks ago, or like a few years ago. So, but ultimately, we have a few minutes, so we're gonna just wrap it up. So this whole episode has been really amazing. I mean, this again started because me and my dad got in a fight the other day, and we just started crying. He started crying. I was crying.
Not a fight. It was an argument.
It was just a father-son. So that's why I just hope that you can go talk to your dad about this stuff. Like, I love you, Bubba. You see, like, that's not an easy thing to say. Like, I love you. Say it back. Say I love you.
Well, same to you too.
I love it. You see, like, it's hard. You see that? Like,
I'm just kidding.
Say I love you. This is like one of those interesting things. Like, as like the kids and their fathers, like from the authoritarian style, it's like, what do you mean? I don't, like, and then the dad kind of just like shrivels up. Like, I don't know how to, but this is the breakdown that we see. This is the next level of consciousness that we're getting to, because we can't get to that next level of consciousness unless we're doing it together. And unless we're doing it with the people who brought us into this freaking world, into this realm in the first place.
Let me say to the fathers, it is okay for you to grab your kids and cry with them. It is okay to tell them that you tried your best and you tried to be the best father that you could. And for the shortcomings, it is okay. It is all right. Fathers, it is okay. It is all right for you to apologize to your kids and say, well, I tried my best. But
like the other day we had this conversation. He just literally told me all of these things from so many different years of my childhood. And now we're here, and now we've done this. So, Bubba, thank you so much. Give me a big ass hug, like.
And I love you very much.
I love you too. All right, yo, you guys have just watched an epic episode of In the Clear with Amir. Check us out on Dash Radio. I love you all. Go give your dad a hug and a kiss. Go give your mom a hug and a kiss. Just go give everybody a hug and a kiss, and tell everybody you love them. I love you all. I love you, Bubba.
Kiss your kids.